From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Gemma Cadet. This is Idaho Matters. So what's new in the world of entertainment? Well, we're about to find out. Here to help us figure all of that out and what to watch is our resident movie critic and Morning Edition host, George Prentice. Hi, George.
Hi, Gemma. Here I am.
Here you are. And George, you wanted to start off, with a news item?
I do, because this is something you and I have talked about on and off. Well, HBO pulled the trigger this week. Warner Brothers has followed Netflix's lead, and they have now what they're calling the extra member add-on feature on Max, on HBO Max. Basically, what this is they want you to pay more per month to add on someone other than you on the account. So this new option, which will cost $7.90, let's just call it $8 a month, only one add-on is allowed per account. So keep in mind that HBO Max costs about $20 per month for an individual. So as opposed to someone else getting their own HBO Max account for $21, they think it would be better if maybe a friend of yours could latch on to your account, but then you or they would pay $8 more a month, if that makes sense. So this allows a primary account owner to share their HBO Max account by inviting a friend or family member outside of their household to create a separate standalone account with an adult profile under the same subscription. So you know that millions of people share their passwords, right? And share their accounts.
Yeah.
So they are going to try to go after these people. You remember Netflix introduced basically the same thing a few years ago in trying to go after people for password sharing. So HBO Max is saying, we're going to find you, and if we do, we're going to cut them off. So now they're saying, why don't you come in voluntarily and add on your friend, but pay $8 more per month.
So here's what I want to know, George.
Yeah.
I don't even know if there's an answer to this.
Yeah.
So we have HBO Max, we have Netflix, and it's, yes, everybody has their own account in our house, right? Their own profile. Not their own account, their own profile.
Right, but under one account, yes.
On one account. Okay, we have a kiddo that's going to go off to college in about a year. So this is what I want these streaming services to answer. So no, he's not going to physically be in my house, but I'm still paying the bills, and he's still a minor. So, or it won't be a minor, he'll be 18. But like, does that mean because they're physically not in the same residence, you now have to do an add-on? Because I find that to be a bit ridiculous.
That's exactly what it means. They're actually saying the words, I'm reading this here, outside of the household will need to create a separate standalone account with an adult profile. So if you are 18 or over, they are going to require this. And how do you police this? I guess through IP addresses.
Oh, yeah, that's what Hulu does.
Good luck with that. But this is pretty big. And obviously, they want to make a lot more money. That's what this is. This is money. But they're saying, well, instead of that person that you would give your password to, creating another account, and by the way, they wouldn't probably, they're saying, oh, we're going to be really generous by charging you only $8 more by latching them onto your account. So, yeah, that's exactly what this means. And I think, I mentioned this before with Netflix, I think they risk losing people.
Well, they're going to risk getting really horrible phone calls from someone like me.
Yeah.
Who's going to fight it? For the pure fact that I understand if you are password sharing with everyone and all of that, right?
Yeah.
You have to make exceptions when you have like children in college, things like that, right? Where it's like his primary residence is still my house, but he's at school somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know.
Good luck with that.
I'm gearing up for a phone call, George.
Yeah, but I have heard that some universities have their own streaming service deals, again, some universities.
Oh, I could see that. Right?
For things like Netflix, et cetera. But again, it's all about the money. I'm sure the university gets a cut of that action.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
I I know. I tell you, George. All right. Well, let's move on to something else. We said goodbye to a really well-known series last night. So can we talk about this?
I had to add this. The Connors had its not season finale. It was the finale of the series. It's over. Keeping in mind that this is a series that started technically in the 1980s with Roseanne. And of course, then there was the controversy with her tweet when she was canceled, if you will. But the Connors, this spinoff or the continuation of Roseanne, continued and actually got more successful for ABC. But all of the actors, and again, these are all the originals. Dan, played by John Goodman, and Jackie, played by Laurie Metcalf, and then the kids, Darlene and Becky, well, they all said goodbye last night. So what was interesting in this final season, it was a really interesting storyline. The storyline was that Dan and the family thought about suing a pharmaceutical company because Roseanne died of an opioid overdose and abuse. Got real serious, right? And so they tried to have some laughs, but like, okay, this finally has to have some resolution last night. So I'm not going to spoil too much here, but they had an hour-long episode on Wednesday night on ABC, and it's streaming on Hulu this morning. And it got really uncomfortable. But you have to watch this as the family went toe-to-toe with a pharmaceutical company. This is ripped right from the headlines. And the family is saying, you owe us. And the pharmaceutical says, yeah, but you enabled her. And it was like, wow, wow. And then the final scenes are at a gravesite with the family, right? And of course, Dan had to have some kind of levity. Here he is at Roseanne's grave last night.
Well, Rose, we always said if the kids were still alive at the end of the day, we did our job. I think we did better than that. Makes me realize we did the right thing by not selling them.
Always the jokester. By the way, I will tell you this. If you think you know how this ends as you're watching this, and you do need to watch this final episode, if you think you know how this is going to end, this is the surprise of all surprises. And I'm telling you, it's a serious surprise. No, Roseanne doesn't come back from the dead or anything like that. No, this is grounded in reality. And there is a major surprise ending in this. But at the end, all of the members of the family are just saying goodbye to one another for the night, if you will, as they're leaving the household. And then John Goodman, Dan, is sitting on that classic couch, right, that the Connors lived on all those years, and he looks into the lens and he says goodnight. And it's difficult not to have a lump in your throat, but mostly because of the content of this episode is they went at it with a pharmaceutical company. And it was not all jokes. You have to see this final episode of The Connors.
Wow. And so he breaks the fourth wall, though, at the end then.
He did, tears in his eyes, and he said good night directly to the audience.
Wow. It is incredible to think of the legacy of this show,
right,
George, because, I mean, I was a kid when Roseanne started. And and I think to have these original characters come back and for the series, The Connors to do as well as it did.
Without her.
Without her.
Right.
And just to have a spinoff do as well, because those are always shaky. They're always iffy.
I think it has everything to do with the talent and the writing and these episodes. And you and I have talked about the Connors for a while now as they came back for what I think 7 more seasons, which is stunning, right? I love this show. I love the fact that it's grounded in a blue collar reality. I think a lot of families can relate to the fact that they don't know where their next meal is coming from. And again, I highly recommend this final episode because it was true to their blue collar roots. This ending, you will be surprised. I promise you.
Well, it sounds like it's definitely worth watching, George. And I do think that they over the years tackled big issues. And so not surprising that they tackled one, as you said, ripped right from the headlines as well.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. So we have got info on the return of a much anticipated second season of a series. So tell us about this.
Indeed. It's Andor, right? Which is one of the Star Wars series. You know, years ago when Disney paid something like $4 billion for Lucasfilm, mostly Star Wars, most people in Hollywood thought, you're kidding me, $4 billion because that franchise is over. The Star Wars stories are over. Yeah, you can repeat those as often as you want, but I don't think anyone really realized how successful The Mandalorian was going to be. And now Andor on Disney Plus. And Andor, by the way, has the highest ratings on Rotten Tomatoes, higher than any live-action Star Wars TV show or movie. Really? It has a 98% positive rating. And Andor, what is so different about this is that it is not a bunch of people with laser swords or wizards with the Force. It has some reality to it because it is about a rebellion. The lead is Rebel Alliance fighter Cassian, played by Diego Luna. And these are earthbound stories. They're very much rooted in oppression, fighting fascism, fighting what is wrong, fighting when everyone else wants to give in. So earlier this week on Morning Edition, the creator and director of Andor visited to talk about how this is grounded in reality.
Oh, utterly and completely. And I, like probably many people listening, I mean, I'm a history freak. I've spent an incredible amount of time reading about revolutions and studying history, you know, in an idiot kind of way, a dinner table kind of way, but really fascinated with it. And all of a sudden, here was an opportunity. I can cherry pick through 6,000 years of history. I mean, is it the Roman Revolution? Is it the English Revolution? Is it the Russian Revolution? Is it the American Revolution? All the things I know about the Haitian Revolution. I mean, is it Thomas Paine? Is it Toussaint Louverture? Is it Trotsky? Is it all of the things that I've accumulated that you're not going to get those into a rom-com. You're not going to get them into an espionage. You're not going to get them into a Bourne movie.
Yeah, you're not. And so Andor really, it checks a lot of boxes. By the way, what's great about this new season, it is 12 episodes, but it's actually 4 different full arcs. So you watch 3 episodes, and that's a full arc. It's a full year. And then the next 3 episodes are a year later. So you can you don't have to see all 12 to binge, if you will. You can watch 3 and binge. But because there's 12, it actually covers 4 years. And every 3 episodes neatly covers a year. It's really, really smart. Andor is on Disney Plus, and the second season just premiered this week.
Okay, George, give us a preview of a brand new series that just launched this week.
It did. It is called Étoile. A little French for you right now. Étoile, which I think in French means star. It is about ballet, and it is highly satisfying. So here's the premise of the show. It stars Luke Kirby and Charlotte Gainsbourg as the directors of 2 separate ballet companies. One is the director of the New York City Ballet. One is the director of the Paris Ballet. But business is horrible in both of them. So they decide to shake things up literally and send all of their divas, all of their dancers to each other's cities. So all of the Parisian ballet dancers come to New York and vice versa. And they think this will be interesting. Audiences will gobble it up. Let's take a listen.
Your company, it's in trouble.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Reviews don't matter.
Mine is too. I've got union issues. Strike, I don't have to pay them.
What?
The audience is dead, so's the funding. The seats are empty.
Not ours.
That's right. Once we closed off the balconies, the house filled right up.
We have to fix this.
Okay, fine. What do we do?
We trade our top talent, Paris and New York.
Is he coming back? I want Cheyenne.
You despise her.
Well, she sold tickets.
This is getting really interesting.
Yes, it is getting very interesting. So By the way, this is not about oh my gosh, the grief that dancers go through. There's plenty of documentaries and movies about this. This is a really funny, interesting series. And here is the pedigree. This is where I'm going to get you, Gemma, because this comes from the creators of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and the Gilmore Girls. Yeah. So this is Amy Sherman Palladino, who always gives us, these hyper-verbal heroines and their on-again, off-again love interests, right? It turns out that she's obsessed with ballet, and she pitched this to HBO, and they said, whatever you'd like, because Marvelous Mrs. Maisel was a huge hit. It's on HBO starting this week.
Okay, I'm going to have to check this out, George, because I have to say I probably would have passed on it if I just saw it pop up. So, and I'm looking, it's getting great rating. I mean, great reviews even.
You'll want to see this one.
And all that. Wow, okay. All right, one of your favorite places to watch television, George, public TV. What do we have coming up?
I think that you mentioned Jane Austen in public TV, and people say, when? Just tell me, when can I see this? But here comes a new series from Britain. I've actually seen this one in advance. It is called Miss Austen, and it is not, rooted in truth. It's based on a novel, but here is the premise, that Jane Austen indeed had a sister, Cassandra, and they were sometimes rivals. And after Jane Austen had passed, some people heard that there were some never discovered letters from Jane Austen. And the sister finds these letters, but will she tell anyone that they actually exist? Take a listen.
May I introduce Cassandra Austen?
Austen? Are you perhaps some relation to Miss Jane Austen?
She was my sister. Everything one needs to know about Jane Austen is found within the pages of her novels. My dearest Eliza, I will somehow have to live without her.
It is something that most sisters must go through.
We are not most sisters. Will she have her happy ending?
Did you find any letters from Jane?
Not a single one.
Not a single one, she says, as she hides the letters in her pocket. So it is called Miss Austen. It will be on Masterpiece on public television beginning Sunday, May the 4th.
So, George, is this based in any,
no.
facts,
I mean, these characters absolutely exist. But as you know, when we start writing historical fiction, and that is a very popular genre, right? When people take real characters and they drop them into, anything. But this was a novel, and it was a big bestseller. So I would imagine that the heirs of Jane Austen are not thrilled at all with this, because everything up to the point of the letters is totally grounded in reality, right? There was their relationship. Okay. Jane left, and it turns out that they were actually in love with the same man. But Jane left and became, Jane Austen, and Cassandra, was always the sister of Jane Austen. So you can imagine what that was like, living in her shadow. Mm-hmm. So the novelist thought, that is catnip for an interesting story. So, that's what this is grounded in. And it was on the BBC earlier this year. It was a huge hit. Indeed, public television just grabbed it as soon as possible, and they put it on Masterpiece. It's going to start in early May. And as soon as I saw this on Idaho Public Television's schedule, I said, oh my gosh, I have to remind people about this one. By the way, Jane Austen is, just people will go see anything with the name Austen on it.
Oh, absolutely. So this is a series, George?
It's a limited series. So it's got the full arc, but it's a number of episodes. It is truly a costume drama, a fair amount of laughs. But for people who are into this era and this genre, it's got, if you like a good Jane Austen story, it's almost as if she wrote it.
Okay, you said something that I guess I never realized, and that was that the real Jane Austen and her sister had fell in love with the same man.
Yes, and so they get into this, and indeed Cassandra thought that this was going to be the man she would marry. Well, but in this novelization, it turns out that you see this man pining for Jane. So you can imagine Cassandra was just furious over all this, right? But then you see all of the little seedlings that are planted of all of the Jane Austen novels that she would write. So you see them as young sisters, and then you think, oh, well, that must be a reference to Pride and Prejudice, and that must be this and this. So you can have a little fun with that too.
Well, I have to say, definitely worth watching and waiting for it to come out. As always, it has been such a pleasure to talk with you, George. One of my favorite things to do.
Thanks so much, Gemma. I love to come to visit.
This is the Idaho Matters podcast. I'm Gemma Gaudette.